Hello and welcome to another video. So this is a deck AutoAIm had posted on his Twitter. It looked like a very interesting rune deck and it seems to do really well, so I gave it a solid go and it was a lot of fun, so that's why we're covering it in a video before the meta kind of settles. Even he had said in his tweet that of course the deck may not hold out in a few days, but we'll obviously have to wait and see in that regard. But as far as this goes so far, it's been a lot of fun and it's definitely got a fairly good amount of new cards. You know, Zealot of Truth, Eleanor, that sort of thing, which is really good. Another Edric of Truth as well, which is another fun card to use. So, hopefully you guys enjoy it, and we'll get right into the video. So, kicking this video off, we've got a sword matchup to go up against. A lot of people are using Coyotes, no matter what deck they're using, and that's fairly interesting. I'm going to make a more solid Coyotes deck, probably in a week's time, when things settle down a lot more, so then we have a better gauge on what we can build there. Plus, I feel an unlimited deck will do a lot better job. But this deck, pretty solid to give a go of, reasonably cheap as far as decks go. And I have been trialing some Mysteria editions, but it hasn't been very good right now. I think that's because Dragon's just running amok. At least right now, that is, so very interesting. Sky Celia is not a bad start. We are going to be able to counter that fairly quickly. The only card here that I always feel iffy on is Eleanor. She's a pretty decent card, but to take full advantage of her is not the easiest thing to do. And of course, a decent Fate's Hand here, getting us some draw. And the Ocratrice is not going to be too hard to counter. We've got plenty of cards here as far as removal goes, and it's really just a matter of taking advantage of that. So in for the Wind Blast boost, along with of course the draw, setting ourselves up as well as we could. And then our opponent does go for the Frontline Cavalier, flooding the board fairly consistently. But, I mean, we've got some decent ways to deal with this. The only real tricky thing is getting Prophetess out. That can be a very difficult option to go down. But usually I don't focus too much on bringing out Prophetess until I'm down to 1 or 2 cards needing to be played. In which case, at that point, I'll just play whatever I need to play out. Usually I just focus on dropping big things and hitting as much damage as I can while dealing with boards. Which may not be the optimal way to play this deck, but as far as just starting out, it's definitely a nice way to just try and learn some of the combinations you want to go for. So I decided to hold on to the Fiery Embrace, obviously clearing that out because I want to target something bigger with Fiery Embrace preferably. Like, even this Heavenly Knight with an Evo, I'd rather hit that with the Fiery Embrace than nothing. And we also get the Edict of Truth, which will allow us to draw some decent cards. Now we can kind of just start dealing with this. So our Truth Adjudications are all going to be fairly decent. And we can maintain this damage pretty well. So a turn 9 play, Proto Baha with an Evo is probably going to be a reasonably safe bet. It does force them to remove Proto Bahamut, and it gets a 9 drop down before we could play something like Zealot of Truth. Thus helping our curve as far as getting Prophetess out. I think the only thing we would be missing at this point, other than playing a 10 drop, is currently playing a 4-drop, because I didn't manage to draw any of my 4-drop cards, even though we have a pretty good array of them. We just got unlucky in that regard. Making it much harder, of course. Some Mysterian Knowledge. And then just a casual Truth Adjudication, some more damage, healing, and a decent body. Which our opponent obviously couldn't deal with another big drop, and gave us the game. Now onto the second matchup, we are up against Dragon. At the moment, one of the more common matches you'll have on ladder because everyone is trying to play Ramp Coyotes, which is not a surprise. But luckily, this rune deck does a fairly decent job of dealing with dragons. Especially if you can start off good like this with a decent insight play into a couple of spell boostable cards. So this time we end up getting a 4-drop, which is, I mean, good because that's where the only area we really struggled in last time. Fortunately, no 2-drop though. Not yet. Turn 3 doesn't look great yet. Of course, I had to draw my Prophetess of Creation, meaning I have to play this on turn 10 later, as it is the only one in the entire deck. The advantage is at least you do recover 9 play points, so that's always a good thing. Cagliostro, Adorable Genius. This is probably the most effective way to remove as much of this board as I could without losing too much. It meant we had to take some serious damage, but I was willing to take that if it meant that I could do what I wanted to do. And from here we should be reasonably set as far as removal goes for the moment. And Missile's not a bad draw. I was hoping to draw some better removal though. If I could have got Mysterian Knowledge, I could have actually wiped this board here. Double Poseidon. Going for that very early Poseidon. Fortunate for them, they will lose a decent chunk of this. Not so lucky, we couldn't draw what I quite wanted, but a Wind Blast will do an okay job at dealing with the Poseidons. And there goes some even more ramp. Disciple of Disdain, looking for those draws. And Serpent Drake, which if you watch my last video is a insane card when it works. Fortunately for me, I can pretty easily use that Bahamut as a spell to remove. I only need to worry about this eyes, which kind of sucks. But, I mean, Truth's Adjudication, if I could get some healing, which even 3 there is okay. As long as they can't clear this and play a second one, we should be good. Oh, Frenzied Drake, not an easy card for us to remove. It's definitely going to cost us a little bit of time. But we should be able to get rid of it with this Flame Destroyer. We just gotta hope they don't have a Storm. If they have another Eyes, if they have another Zoe, if they have, well, if they just have Zoe, if they have any card like that, we could be in trouble. Water Evolkers, not a huge issue. That's actually pretty good for us. And if we use this Prophetess of Creation, a Nova Flare, and then the Zealot of Truth to round out our 9-drop play, that should be enough to get our Prophetess out. Which is great, so a 2020 pretty much unkillable. I mean, you got to deal direct damage to it, which is not that easy to do. So it went quite well, very close game though, we could have lost at any moment. But on the better side, the more I've played with this deck, the more used to it I've got, which means I make slightly better plays, which really does help out. As you saw in that last game, going for that Prophetess really did help us in the end, works out pretty well. Zealot of Truth is definitely an amazing card, because as a 9-drop, being able to drop it to 0 really does help get that Prophetess out. I think that was a remaining problem last time, was we didn't have a decent 9-drop that we could really lower, and this one having Storm makes it all that much better. And of course, we have plenty of other low-end cards which are very easy to use. And then it's just a matter of playing something like Edric of Truth, which gives you play points back. So you don't really lose out playing that card either, because once you spell boost to 9 times, you get 7 play points back. Thus meaning it's practically free. And the same with, you know, Fiery Embrace. Bahamut can be used as both a 9 and a 7 drop, so that covers both the Truth and the Zealot, so it's actually a really nice middle ground. And then the Truth's Adjudication is really the only one that can be tricky, because it is the 6 drop category, which we don't have anything else to cover the 6 drop which is a little difficult, and Nova Flare obviously in Cagliostro, that you add up to both 3/4 drops as well, and then 3/3 drops, and so on until you get to really 2 and 1s where you have multiples. And the 5-drop Fate 10, but 5-drop Fate 10 can be dropped to 0, making it a little more convenient. So definitely a fun deck, and I would recommend giving it a go if you've got the couple of legendaries you would need to play it, which, in overlooking at it, is reasonably cheap. Not quite cheap as Mysteria typically is, but really quite a cheap deck. So definitely worth a shot if you want to try it right now. I'm not sure how it will go in the long run, but definitely worth it at this moment. So you can find the deck list in the description below. Hit the like button, subscribe for more content. Until next time, see ya.